Hello guys, in this video I'm going to explain how to create an API endpoint via Express.js that will upload an object to Amazon S3 through the JavaScript SDK. A couple of weeks ago I had this project I was working on where I had to use the Amazon JavaScript SDK, and it took me a couple of hours to really understand how to make use of the SDK because of the way the documentation is messed up. So a couple of things are needed if you want to follow along with this video. You need Node.js installed on your PC. You will need Postman for testing the API, and then AWS account with proper permissions. So what you can see here is the bucket which I've created already. So you do have to create the same. And also don't forget that on Amazon S3 bucket, it is going to be always going to deny request unless it's an explicit allow. So you do well to ensure proper permissions set on the bucket as well. So what's next now? We head over to VS Code. So now back to Visual Studio Code. So first things first, we're going to initialize our project. So there's the version 2 and version 3 of the Amazon SDK, AWS SDK. So we're going to be making use of the version 2 first, after which we're going to make use of the version 3. So to make use of the version 2, we're going to install Express first and also AWS SDK. So after installation of all necessary packages, first we're going to create a file called AWS client. This is going to house the configurations for authentication into the S3 bucket. So first we're going to import. I'm going to require AWS SDK as AWS. Now we have to set a region. Now this region has to be the region which you created the S3 bucket in. So for instance, I created the S3 bucket I'll be using for this demo video US is 2. Then to get your access key, you need to have an AWS account, access key ID. This won't work for you. So you have to create yours. Just copy it from right here. Then we set up the secret key. Then this is where the configuration is going to begin from. So let's say AWS, not the config object update. So the first argument we're going to pass to this object is the region which we have created here. Then we are going to also accept a credentials object. So in this credential object, we are going to have the access key ID. Which is the access key ID here. We're also going to have the secret key ID. Secret access key, which we have set up here also. So after this, we're simply going to export this. As AWS. We're going to create a new file, index.js. So this is where our configuration for this is where the server is going to be set up. So we're going to install Express, import Express rather. Then we're going to also need a package called Malta. So what Malta does is to enable Express to be able to process form data, because we're going to be submitting files, and we're going to be submitting files as form data. So we're also going to need to install a package called Malta. So npm I Malta. So So this has finished installing, so we go ahead. We're not going to make use of it right away anyway. So this is going to be the client which we exported from this folder here. So require. So, and also we're going to start setting up Express from here. Then we're going to set up this app to listing on port 3000. Just pass it a callback. Console log server is running. So let's test it here. Just test server out. So we're going to use node1 to be starting the server. So what node1 enables us is to have automatic refresh. So we don't need to keep stopping and starting our server when changes are made. So we're going to be making use of what's called Postman. So what Postman does is it helps us test our API endpoints. So you can also install Postman. So now this confirms the server is working after sending the test request. Alright. Now we've ascertained the server is working. So next thing is we're going to be using the version 2 SDK to firstly to list the bucket in a particular region. That's from our AWS account. So version 2 SDK. So we're going to be naming this route v2, meaning version 2 and bucket. Since we are listing the bucket, we're going to list the bucket. So first things first, we're going to initialize the SDK by creating a const and assigning this, calling this client AWS client dot AWS as we exported in this folder, because we exported the configurations as AWS, so we're importing it as AWS also here. So I'm calling S3 to initialize this. After calling this, we call S3.listBucket to list the bucket. Now the version 2 SDK doesn't support promises, so we can't use things like async await or .then call. So rather we're going to use the native callback functions. So I'm going to pass the callback function in here. First argument access is error, and here is the response, calling it data here. So if there's an error, we are simply going to console log the error. Else we're just going to rest.send data.buckets. Right. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be using Postman. We're going to be using Postman to test this. So I think we named it localhost 3000 v2 bucket. So we're going to hit the route. Hopefully everything goes as planned. Yeah, we have the response back, and as you can see, we have the list of buckets in this particular region. So if we head back to the browser, to our AWS console, the S3 console, and go back to our bucket, to list our bucket. It's loading. As you can see, we have 4 buckets here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 buckets here. So it works as expected. Now, back to Visual Studio Code. We can go ahead now and create the route for posting the data into the bucket. So bash let's say post. So first things first, we have to initialize Malta because Express on its own, as mentioned earlier, can't work on form data. So Malta helps Express able to handle that. You can read more of Malta if you're interested on the documentation page. So we bring in Malta, and to initialize Malta, we're going to define upload and call on Malta. So Malta can act as a middleware. So you can just call upload. And since we are going to it's going to expect just a single file. So we're going to call single and expecting it on the file part of the headers. So I'm going to call this and call on, since the version 2 SDK doesn't accept promises, doesn't work with promises. So as we did earlier in the first route, to initialize the bucket, to initialize the SDK, we're simply going to call S3 again and call new AWS client. After this, we can go ahead now and define some parameters. We define an object which is going to hold the key. Okay, we firstly have to define a file name. That's the name of the object being uploaded to S3. So I'm going to use the template literals and simply call on date.now iPhone. We're going to call, because of the Malta we use here, we have access to the file object and what we call the original name. So, and now back to the upload params, we're defining a key, passing it the file name first. Then we define the bucket, that's the bucket we want to upload to. Now you have to make sure the bucket we are uploading to is correctly spelled here. If not, it won't work through. It won't work out. So tutorial, and then I'm going to pass the actual data, the actual buffer, the actual file. So which is going to be available thanks to Malta on rec.file.buffer. Alright. Now after this, we can then call on the we can then call S3 as we defined earlier. S3 as we defined earlier. Upload. So upload, and then first it's going to accept this object which you created here as the upload params. Then we're going to pass in the callback function. First argument is going to be the error. Second argument is going to be the response. So if error, else, I simply would just send a response of success via Postman. So we simply going to wrap this with the try catch call to catch any other errors. So simply console. We can also send the error issue in case there's an error. Right. So I think we can test this out now. So we head back to Postman. So I think it's a post request of localhost v2 slash, I think we named that posts. Let me just confirm. Yeah, so this should work. Now to the file we want to upload, we go to the body, we go to params, go to key. So we go to the body and we go to form data. So key. So this key has to be what you put in your code right here at this point. So the key has to be named file. So that is what Malta is going to look for. That's what Malta expects. So we're going to name this file. So after doing that, the value. So we are working with a file, not a text. So we simply have to modify this from Postman and call it file. So we select the file. We select the file we want to upload. So let's just call, I'm going to upload this as a sample. And then we're going to send. Alright, no response. Something is wrong somewhere. So here we have an error saying params.body. Okay, rather, it should be upload params. So hopefully it works now. Okay, yes it did. So now if we head over to our S3 bucket, our S3 console, if we head to our S3 console, this is the bucket we uploaded it to. Not here. Okay, I think we still have an error. Let's check it out. Missing parameter, key parameters. Okay, this should be capital letter. The K in the key should be a capital letter. So let's try this one more time. Alright. Hopefully went through this time around. So let's head over to our bucket and refresh. Alright. It's now here, although there's an issue with the naming. Let's see. There's an issue here in the file name. I think the issue should be file name this.now. Or we didn't call the function of this.now. That's why it's giving us that. So back to Postman. We resend the same folder again, same file. Now we head back to our bucket and reload, refresh. And now we have it as expected. The this.now function generates this date and appends it with the original file name as stock.png. So as you can, we've successfully used the version 2 of the SDK. So for the version 3, we're going to be making use of a new package, a package also by AWS. So, and this package is a little bit lighter. So name of the package is AWS SDK /client-s3. So as you can see, the client only brings in the S3 part of the AWS SDK, which makes it lighter. Okay, now the installation is done. So we're going to bring it in as AWS 3 require. Okay, so the configuration for the version 3 is a bit different from the version 2. So we're going to simply call this version 3 config. Right, so we're going to call on, we're going to simply define a const. So this is going to return, when we call this, when we call new AWS.s3 client, AWS3 rather, S3 client. So calling this, we're going to pass in an object, a single object here. Now the first So we are passing to the object is going to be the credentials. Right here in the credentials, we're going to pass in the access key ID. We're also going to pass in the secret access key provided to us from our account, AWS account. So secret access key. So, and we name this secret key. Then we're going to pass finally the region. Yeah, the region as the final. So we're going to export this as it is S3 instance. Yep. So now we're going to go back to our index. So as we did earlier, we're going to list our bucket with the version 3 also. So we're going to app.get. We're going to call v3 bucket. Yep. v3 bucket. So with the version 3, we can use version 3 is compatible with promises. So we can use async await here. So first we are going to create a command, a called command, and we're going to initialize S3 here also. So we imported this as AWS client. So AWS client. Okay. We also have to import this in the index file also when we're using the version 3 of the SDK to create what we call a command. So after import the original AWS S3, that's the package itself. After installing it, we're going to come here and create a command and call it AWS 3. That's the version 3. And call on list bucket command. Simply this. So after calling this, we're going to create another course called response. Since this access can work with promises, we simply could use an await here. I'm going to call the AWS client, which defined earlier, the S3 instance for the version 3 configurations. And then we're simply going to call on the send command. Send and pass in the command here. After this, we're simply going to send this. We're going to send the response bucket. Hopefully this works. So we head back to Postman to test this out. So we create a new say localhost version 3 / buckets. Hopefully this works out. Did not. Let's get back to the console and see why. Oh, we didn't start the server. So node more index. So back to Postman. We send it again. Waiting for a response. It's taking forever. Let's see if there's an error. Yep, there's an error. Response not defined. Okay, I have a typo. However, I didn't wrap this in a try catch command. That's why we're not getting a response. It's just hanging on Postman. So let's do that. So in the case of an error, we're simply going to console log error, and then we're going to send the error. We head back to Postman again, resend. Still something's wrong somewhere. Something is wrong somewhere. v3/bucket. List to call buckets. Let's see. .send command. List bucket command with AWS S3 instance. Alright. This should work. I don't see any error. Let's try it one more time. Sometimes it will be network issues. Let's try it again. Alright, it did go through this time around. So it was, I think, a network issue. So we have the bucket list, and this is the version 3. We're using the version 3 SDK. So and we have the appropriate response. So now let's go ahead and go for posting the bucket for posting. So create a route v3/post. As we did earlier, we used Mortar to process a single file in the form data. So in the form, Mortar is going to expect file. Mind you can also use any name you want here, but you have to ensure the name you pass into the Mortar to the single object here, the single call here, has to be the same name you use when uploading the form via Postman. So call reqs, and we also call it try catch command also in case of an error. My console log error. Now first things first, we're going to define a file name as we did earlier. We can simply just copy it from here, post that here. Then we create a command. I think AWS 3 put. Now we call on put object command. Put object command here and call it as it is. And then we are going to, just like we did earlier, we are going to create an object just like this. Yeah, in fact, we can just copy this. It's the same thing. So just create an object here. So key file name, this, that. Then from the client, we can just say const response equals to await. So AWS client, as we did earlier, we call on S3 instance dot send. So we call on send. We can send. Now this put object command is what is actually going to accept this upload params. So we come here and then we simply just call on upload params. Then right here we send the command. So what this does is like to create the command, to form the command that we're going to send to the client. That's what this AWS put object command does. So then we check for an error. So if we have our response available on the metadata command, and metadata, I think, yep, metadata, and then I think it's called HTTP status code. Yeah, if we have anything, if we have this equals to 200, that's okay. We are simply going to res.send as we did earlier. Success. So hopefully this goes through. I think we are good to go. You can head over to Postman now. Call this think it's a post request, localhost 3000 v3 slash post. We send this as a body form data, then bring this down. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to, instead of calling this file, I'm going to call this let's call it file and file to show. So because we changed this to file, we also have to come into this part here of and remove the e also. So it has to be the same with what Postman is sending. So heading back to Postman, hopefully it works out. Then we select a file. We select a file. I'll simply send this. Hopefully it works through. Okay, we have a success command. Let's just head to the bucket and see if we have the bucket, the object here. Okay, so we refresh this. Yeah, we have that here. This is what we uploaded, the menu.png image. So everything went as planned. So that's that about uploading to S3 Amazon S3 bucket via the SDK. So what actually inspired this was, I think I was working on a project recently, and I found it difficult to differentiate between the version 2 SDK and version 3 SDK. So the documentations were so messed up. So, and it took me a couple of hours to sort this out. So I decided to make a video on this, and I know many people also have the same issue. So thanks for watching. Please, if you have any questions, don't forget to leave it in the comment box. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.